Hello again, John Wild here to give you another look at vintage action figures, and this time we're going to be looking at the Bad Guys from Remco Toys 1982. In 1982, Remco Toys released the Bad Guys to toy aisles. The Bad Guy characters are generic Bad Guy characters. The packaging states the ultimate enemies of Sergeant Rock, G.I. Joe, M.A.S.H, and any mini-soldier. Often these toys are grouped with Sergeant Rock figures, and rightfully so, as they're just recolored Sergeant Rock figures. 5 named characters were released: Grizzly, Hawk, Scorpion, Shark, and Snake. The Bad Guys card back has a cobra on it, likening it to the cobras G.I. Joe used. Generic card backs were used for this toy line. The card back also states that the toys are fully posable and ready to strike with weapons and gear. Each figure came with a gun, a knife, a bazooka, and a radio. Let's take a minute to look at the articulation on the figure. His head turns right and left. His arms go up and down. He does bend at the hip, and his knees also bend. Getting a look at the back of the figure, we can see Remco didn't even bother taking the DC brand stamp off of the Bad Guy figures. These are really kind of strange looking figures because the arms aren't necessarily in proportion with the rest of the body, so he kind of has a Tyrannosaurus look to his arms. The figures don't stand very well either, and the receivers on their feet don't fit any action figure stand that I'm aware of. The gun fits into their hands just like this, although not very securely. The radio backpack can be carried in their other hand. Getting the figure to hold the bazooka is kind of a mystery. I really do not know how this thing is supposed to fit in his hands. The entrenching shovel and the knife fit well in the back of the figure, although not very securely. Other than the action figures, only the giant double action set was produced for the Bad Guys toy line. This included the Sandbag machine gun Encampment and the Assault Raft invasion set. First, getting a look at the Sandbag machine gun Encampment, we see it's just a cheap piece of plastic. It's got a receiver here for the machine gun, a spot for the figure in the back, and a plastic barbed wire fence. Here's a good look at the machine gun that came with the set, and this would tab into the play set and you could defend your base. You would put the figure into the little divot here in the back, and then he could defend with the machine gun. The accessories that came with the set are pretty much standard for a lot of the Sergeant Rock figures. So you have the bazooka, you have a knife, you have an M16 rifle, you have an entrenching shovel, and you have the radio backpack. The entrenching shovel didn't fit in the hand of the figure, but it did have a spot here on the back that you could store it. Now let's get a look at the next piece of the giant double action set, which was the Assault Raft invasion set. Like the Sandbag machine gun Encampment, this also came with the same machine gun, which would tab into the raft. The machine gun also rotates on its platform. The back of the raft here sports an outboard motor. The sides of the raft here have some rope detail. The inside of the raft has a little bit of detail. And strangely, the front of the raft says Sergeant Rock on it, which is a reuse of the Sergeant Rock Assault Raft. On the front of the raft here, there's a spot where you can add a rope and you can tow your boat across the water. The figure sits very well inside of the raft. Or 2 or 3 could ride using the sides. The raft also floats on the water. The Assault Raft is brand stamped on the back, Remco Toys, New York, New York, made in Hong Kong, trademark DC 1981. The Assault Raft had the same accessories as the machine gun Encampment. It had a bazooka, it had your rifle, had the radio backpack and knife. It also had 2 oars, which unfortunately I do not have. That's what came with the Assault Raft set. I'm kind of hesitant to endorse this toy line. It is a very cheap set of figures. The accessories don't fit very well in these figures' hands, and often they have a tendency to fall out. This is most likely why the accessories for Remco Sergeant Rock or the Bad Guys figures are so often missing. These are still fairly inexpensive figures to collect, and there are a lot of color variations to accumulate. But as they are so different from G.I. Joe, I'm kind of drawn to them, even though as a kid, I looked down at them as cheap knockoffs. The giant double action set had its place on the toy shelves as a less expensive option to G.I. Joe, but you got what you paid for. I would like to thank you for watching my video. Please like, share, and subscribe to catch my latest uploads. And until next time, the sworn enemies of M.A.S.H.